In this video, we're going to create a really simple and easy, but very useful AutoLISP command. I'll demonstrate two native AutoCAD commands to kind of show you what we're trying to achieve here. So they're the layer lock and layer unlock commands. I currently have these mapped to my F7 and F8 keys. Of course, you can also type them at the command line. So the advantage to the command we're going to create is we're going to use a conditional to turn it into a toggle instead of two separate commands. So in my case, I'd be able to free up one of those function keys for a different shortcut. And I guess if you prefer keyboard aliases, now you only have to memorize one alias instead of two. So those are kind of the advantages we'll gain from this command. But also, since we're using a conditional and a toggle, that's something you'll encounter in any programming language quite often. So hopefully this gives you a skill you can apply to other situations as well. This tutorial, I'm going to use the old Visual Lisp editor. There's some advantages to it that you'll see. They're trying to push us towards using Visual Studio Code, but for me at least, I find it to be a pretty big downgrade. But everyone's going to have their own personal preferences. As I write the code, I'm not really going to explain things. I'll leave it up to you to look up the required help documentation. And of course, I'm always open to answering questions in the comments. So the first thing we're going to do is grab our object. I am going to set this variable to local. But since we're running this in the console, that variable will have a value for this session. But normally when you load this code and run it, if you place the variable here, it'll clear to nil after the command has run. But since this has a value, which I'm just double clicking on, then right clicking, going to inspect, I can see for our purposes, I can see everything I need to see in here. Another thing you can do, of course, is actually I don't need to do that. I can just go like that. If you put the optional true argument at the end of this, it'll also spit out the methods. So I have my object set. Let's get the layers. I think when I was just beginning, this confused me because I thought I was actually getting a layer object, but this just gets the layer name. With the name, we can get the layer object. It's hard to say when you should create a variable and when you shouldn't, but if you're only using this once, you can just set the variable right away. And what this will take in is the actual, I'm actually missing a line. So VLA-item, an item of the layer connection, a collection, not connection, with this name. So what we can do is just go like this, plug that in there. You see the advantage I have here is that I can just plug my line of code directly into the Visual Lisp console. So me, truth be told, I'm not much of a programmer. I call myself more of an idea guy. So a really good coder, some of the people they use like even Notepad++, they don't really need to do that, but at my peak coding ability, I look like one of those people that could type out code almost as fast as they can write an email, but I'm getting older and other priorities, just not that good anymore. And having this, being able to go line by line of code and plug it into here and make sure you get the right variables from it is such an advantage for me. Okay, so there's a easy and hard way to do the rest of the code. The main purpose of this lesson was to show you a conditional usage. So we're going to do it the easy way, but be warned, this will have some unintended behavior. So that should equal true. So I think I can close my function off now. I like to add some sort of a separator just so I know where the function ends, especially if I have more than one function in one file. But anyways, you can do a quick check. If you only want to check one piece of code, you can go like that. I think we're okay, so I'm going to load it. Go back into my AutoCAD file. Type LL. Now it looked like it didn't work, but it did. The layer is locked. I'm going to unlock it. But as you know, the layer lock function, if you have the layer lock fade control set to anything other than 0, I think, it's going to make the layer do that. So this is where things get kind of tricky. And there is a simple solution, but that would be using the command. Well, I'll just show you what I actually mean. I could block out this line just for a second. Command dash layer. You put the name in and so on and so forth. If you wanted to go that route, what you should do is test it out in the command line first. Occasionally, some of these functions don't work quite the same in AutoLISP as they do on the command line. Even the dash version. The dash, I think in every case, means that instead of for example, the layer command where you type layer and the dialog comes up, putting a dash forces the command line version of the command. So anyways, you have this. Lock, you put the name of the layer in, and you always need one extra click or one extra enter press at the end of the command. But anyways, I've actually written this command before, twice actually, because I misplaced it, lost it, but realized I could rewrite it so quickly that it wasn't even worth looking for. So I'm going to show you how I'll fix it not using command, using VisualLisp, and it's going to kind of be a hokey way to fix that issue, but it does work. So anyways, I'm going to pause the video, and then when I come back, we'll just finish up the code. So here we are with the completed code. I added a program which lets you put more than one statement in a single if condition. And then I flashed the layer on and off using VisualLisp. Now, you're probably wondering, why not just use the command? And I used it right here with regen. There is a VLA regen, and that you have to grab either your active space or do it to all layouts at once. But the VLA regen works good, but it's just so much simpler to do this. So if I'm going to bother using the command function here, then why not just use it up here and turn all this into just this basically, right? But I think a bit of it has to do with ego. As you get further into your programming, there are situations where you can't use the command function. And another thing that the command function does is it will make the code perform, I guess on a really long function, the code will perform noticeably slower. But on modern computers, that hang-up is usually going to be very negligible. If you had a really large database of objects and you were doing something with the command that you can do in either plain Lisp or Visual Lisp, you definitely use the code. But yeah, so this is kind of redundant, but I don't know, just some inner voice speaks to me and says, don't use this. But just in case, I did put it here if you wanted to see what those lines of code would look like. And just once more, this could replace all of that. Okay, so before we finish up, let's just clean that up because I'm not going to use that. Check the code one more time, load it, and just check that it's working. So if you found this tutorial helpful and you want me to build this code further, for example, it won't work with an existing selection, and it won't work with multiple objects on multiple layers. So we can make versions of this code where you can have something called an implied selection, meaning if I selected these, then ran the command, it would lock every layer that has a currently selected object. And same goes with multiple objects. But yeah, it's I just wanted to do a quick lesson, but if I get enough feedback or enough people want that, we can make a version with an implied selection and a version that uses multiple objects. So anyways, I hope you found this lesson useful, and thanks very much for watching.